Let me show you how you can select your drums faster and better. So we will need to do some preparation in order to execute the drum selection very fast in our next projects. So the very first thing we need to do is we need to create MIDI clips with the position of the drums. So for example, let's say our closed hi-hats have 16th notes position here. Then our snare is on every second kick, for example, and our open hi-hat is like in the middle between two kicks, and so on. We have position for the crash. I have a separate video on that, which I will link up here if you're interested more in that. But that's kind of like the first and most simple step. So we have created now MIDI patterns which already work as kind of like a foundation to trigger our drums. Then the next thing, if we want to trigger our drums, we need to have a selection of drums. And that's the next thing you can create. You can see here in my user library, I have like a selection of snares. So that's like a drum rack in which I put like all the snares, which I find good, tambourines, shakers, open hi-hats, special offbeat hats. There's even one more snare thing. So you can kind of like create little racks which just contain your favorite samples, which you might already used in some tracks and you have good experience with, or which are from your favorite packs or your latest packs you got to your collection. And this can help you really to kind of like nail it faster, because a lot of times people kind of like hoard samples, so they have like dozens and thousands of samples on their disk, but it doesn't really matter unless you really find the good ones. So what I would do first is get of all those samples you might have, just like the best ones. And if you don't have samples, then maybe it's time to start a collection where you put like your best samples in. And once you have this, so that you have like the MIDI patterns and you have like your favorite drums. So for example, I also have like different racks sometimes for like different type of tracks. So if I want to have more like brighter or darker drums, so you can even split that into like different like subcategory or sub racks. Then you have kind of like half of the selection already done, because now we are able to just like move with our MIDI through here. So we can either like move the whole MIDI or like select like single drums, which we find like good. So the next thing actually I would do here is that you select like one set of drums which really works well together. So it could be for your current track already, or you could just do this whenever you don't feel creative. And then you start mixing it so that you also have already like the mix done. So as you would have created like a drum thing for your track, and then you will store the whole group with all the racks also in your user library. And this will help you even more, because next time when you create a project, you just need to drag it over and you have already the MIDI in there and you have already all your best racks, and maybe you just need to replace one or two racks if you want to have like a different color or something for your drums, if you prefer to have like a darker or brighter track, or if you want to organize them by keys, so that some drums may be working better in high or low keys. I don't do that, to be honest. So whatever kind of like suits your production, you can have this kind of like into like sub racks, and then you will have this bigger group which you just drop in, and it's kind of like ready mixed in the ballpark already. So now we have our MIDI and we have our racks and we have everything mixed together in this group. So once you have finished this group here, then you can drag it over into your user library as well. And the next time when you start a track, you can just bring that group and you have your favorite racks, you have all the MIDI already in place, and you have a good mix. And then from there, I want to show you some stuff which you can do to make it like sound a little bit different. And by the way, in my course, we will do a full month on drum selection, on timbre, mixing, everything, so that you know exactly how to make killer drums. So what you can do now is, for example, I created like this closed hi-hats which are more stable, and I created like this closed hi-hats which layer on top of them. And so what we can do now is we can put like randomization plugins in here. So for example, velocity, and this gives like a random velocity, and you can set the value to your taste. so that these hi-hats will always change in velocity. I would never use it like that in a track, so I will show you in a second how I would use this. And the same we can do here with some randomization. So we can randomize the velocity as well. So we could even go higher, depends a bit on how we want to have it. And we add 2 arpeggiators. And let me explain you this quickly what they do. So they trigger at a 1/16th rate, random, and this one moves up by 12 semitones in 8 steps. Can move 8 octaves. So 1 octave is 12 semitones, and it always moves by an octave. So it basically jumps between the octaves. And this one does more or less the same like the last one. So it's 1/16th, and it jumps by 12 semitones, but only in 1 step. So it jumps like in between the octave, kind of like everything in between. So we have the jumps in octave, and we have everything in between. So now we have created something which actually lets us flip through all of our samples in here. And sometimes, depending on how many samples you have in the rack, so this one is completely full, you will need to set this up a little bit different. So maybe like having less steps in the octaves here. And I just placed the MIDI completely down here, and that worked really well. The only a little glitch I found here is if I set this to 100%, it stops at some places placing notes randomly. So if you set this to 99%, you're fine to go. And then once you trigger this, I have like 2 channels set up here. One is routed from closed hi-hats here, and one is routed from like this closed hi-hats second layer. And then you can record them out. So it records it out down here. So this looked basically like this. And this one looked like this. And then I just dragged it up here onto the original track again. And then I selected the good parts here. So which kind of like combinations worked really nice. And let's do this one time together. So I will drag this up here so that you can see it. Now, it's important that you put that off, because otherwise you will get like another layer of randomization. So we can group this nicely here. And now we are really triggering what's playing. And now all you need to do is you need to listen through this. I usually tend to find like sections from like, let's say, maximum 2 bars, better 1 bar, or sometimes even just like a quarter note, which I then start repeating. And for that exercise, I would turn off the crash and kind of like too much stuff from the other drums. So we just keep like snare, open hi-hat, our closed hi-hat and closed hi-hat second layer on here to listen through it. And then we will mark everything which sounds good. So let's do that. I think this one wasn't bad. So we just cut it with Command E and mark it. Yeah, this one is also not bad. Let's give it a bit different color. So this one, for example, is not so good. You see like it keeps like the stable thing here. It's not so nice. I think those have been as well. You can also do 0 if you don't want it. Here I think we find like this one, but this is a bit short, so maybe we would need to replace like the last one here then. I think this one also was good. This one could be something. And this one could also work. So now we have found some parts which have been nice. I will quickly consolidate them with Command J so that it's only like this loop here. And we will also delete everything which we don't need. And then we can loop the parts. So we take everything, we just loop them, and we can go into the next level. So we just drag those over here like this. And now we can actually trigger them and see if we find some combinations in here which are even better. So you wanna put like quantization on here, so maybe like to a quarter note at least, and then we can start playing everything. So just let's loop this here again. So maybe let's loop it over here. I think that one was not a bad combination. So let's save this here. This one is also good. This one might also work. Yeah, I don't want to bore you. You could also actually randomize that again with the trigger modes, so that you set up like trigger modes down here with follow actions, and then record this out again and kind of like select the best combinations, or you just click through everything here. But once we found some good ones, what I would do is, let's have like a listen to those. So we can insert a few new scenes down here, and we just bring them down. So I like this one the best, and now we can actually take this, bring that down here again, loop this, and then from there I would not stop. I would see how I can improve this, if I can swap some drums, the mix needs to be adjusted, all those like little things, if we can change any of the other rhythm elements. So for example, I have like tambourine here, maybe we need to change the velocity on that one as well, so that kind of like grooves along with the rest. But that's kind of like the idea how you can go. And obviously you can go without all this randomization stuff and just go in here and select it. So to show you this as well, we could basically go in here, switch the velocity off, have this one off, and then just go like this, so that we let this run here. Just pick some velocities. It could be also maybe like this. So you will need to see what works the best for you. And then I would do like the following. I would start with this one, and then with this one, and then do the rest of the two. But sometimes it's easier if you listen everything, or if you have already like a good row selected, and go from there then. So we could then go manually like save the ones we like. And once we have a bunch of them, I tend to fold it and then like directly compare. So I think that one wins over that down here. Yeah, that sounds not so nice, I guess. And you can always refold it if you wanna have more. Yeah, that's, I think, where I would land finally. And now we can actually have a comparison between the random and the manual one. Yeah, I think this one is nice because the groove is more felt. Also don't get tricked by loudnesses, but I think, by the way, let me quickly make that a bit more uniform. But this one also sticks quite out, so maybe I would try what happens if we put that one here. Or what happens if just like the volume a bit here and maybe make it also a bit more diverse. As I see it, we could also like limit here the velocity plugins to say we don't want to have a range above like 100, for example, so that we don't get like this super loud drums, which might then sound better just because they're louder. Let me know which one you like more, the hand-picked one or the randomized one. I would be very interested. But that's kind of like how you can do it and how you can improve your workflow and select your drums faster and better next time.